Let go.
Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. So actually, to kick off October, we're going to start with August, because I realized in August that I read some pretty spooky books. So I thought, it would be super cool to do these August books as my nail art book journal for October to kick off the spooky month. I read 2-ish books this month. I read 2 books and 1 short story book. That was actually an arc read, but that's a bonus for later. Let's get into it. So the first book I want to talk about to kick off a spooky week is Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. And if you're looking at me like, I've definitely heard you talk about that book before, you're wrong. I was talking about The Show before, which is my favorite show, starring my favorite actor and singer, Jacob Anderson / Raleigh Ritchie. But this is a book, and this is quite different, at least in terms of my favorite character, Louis, because they add a few more elements in the TV show, which you're going to have to watch my video on the TV show to learn about that. Today we're talking about the book. And the book, it gets a lot of flack. Some that I agree with, some that I think is like, okay, some that I kind of roll my eyes at, but Interview with the Vampire is exactly what it sounds like. Something I did not expect is that this entire book is dialogue. It is simply an interview, a 100 pages long interview. I think that was so silly and fun of a concept, TBH. I know a lot of people critique it and talk about its effectiveness. I don't know. I think I was kind of not taking the book very seriously, TBH. But I do think it was very fun and silly. And it is an interview between Daniel Malloy, a young journalist, and in the modern day, or what was the modern day, because this was written a while back, and a seemingly centuries-old vampire named Louis Dupont-de-Lac, and he is relaying his story from when he first met, or from when he first encountered another vampire, and eventually got turned. So way back in the 1700s, and this is the greatest departure from the book that the show made, Louis was a plantation owner in the 1700s in Louisiana, and his father had recently passed from when he began his story, so he took up the man of the family role. His brother, Paul, started to go through what a lot of people deem religious psychosis, even though I don't think that's specifically stated in the book, but he starts to have these grandiose ideas and fabrications, and he's hearing voices and he's seeing things, and that ultimately leads to something greater and more tragic that Louis will blame himself for and be wary about his role as the patriarch of the family, not just because of his brother, but because of his sister as well, who wants to get married and travel and also live a life. It seems like everybody is very fixated on their role within the family, their role within life, and Louis is very certain about what it is on the plantation until Mr. Lestat de Lioncourt seems to approach him one day, and him and his father actually move in, strangely. I really liked the scenes with Lestat's father, TBH. I thought it was super interesting watching him and his father interact, him and his father and Louis interact. I really wish we got those scenes in the show, but that wouldn't work because in the show Louis is a black man, and so that would be strange. I don't know how they would be able to do that, but I really wish we got those father scenes with Louis, because I did enjoy that. I don't enjoy the father. I really didn't enjoy the father, but I was very conflicted, which, this is what gothic media is supposed to do. But anyway, I don't have to tell you how, I don't have to tell you why. You all know that at some point Lestat is going to turn Louis into a vampire. There will be various characters to look out for that I did enjoy, actually, like Babette, like Claudia. Oh, characters that I do love. I do, listen. Leslie Lestat forever. If you say Leslie or you say Lestat, I say both, but I started saying Leslie more often because it pisses people off, and if that pisses you off, I think you should get a job and get away from me, so I say Leslie more often. But Leslie Lestat fans, listen, I'm you, I'm with you, that's Endgame, that's for real. I did find the Babette scenes very heartwarming. But anyway, characters that are constantly pulled in different directions to the point where it feels like their arms are breaking off as a metaphor for them breaking themselves. Louis is the opposite. He does have that problem a lot where he is constantly breaking himself, but the only way he can think of to remedy that is not by letting go, but by pulling those people who are pulling him back towards himself and ripping their arms off. And I think that's sort of the metaphor I think of when I think of Louis. His greatest flaw, a lot of people will say, is his empathy. He is very much clinging to humanity while clinging to vampirism, while constantly romanticized and enamored with the idea of vampirism to the point where he can't hold on to both. He has to let go of one, or he has to at least embrace one. He has to fully accept himself as a vampire, as Lestat would, to interact and be in humanity the same way Lestat does, but he simply refuses because he cannot get rid of his human ties and his empathetic nature, and so he's caught in the metaphorical throes of wonder. No, that was a joke, because that's a quote. That's a quote. But no, he's caught in the metaphorical throes of either pulling off other people's arms or having his own ripped off, and I think it's super freaking interesting, and that's why I really like Louis. And one of the reasons why I don't really get the hate for Louis. A lot of people find him boring compared to Lestat, and that's so strange to me. I could understand you in the grand context of things, and I can definitely understand in the context of the time period, maybe when it was released, but I don't know, I just feel like in the world of modern day fandom and queerness, and within the queer community lens, I really don't see as like a white rock star diva, long hair, girly pop, whatever you want to call him. I feel like you can find that like every time you open up the internet. Like nowadays, there are so many wonderful, interesting things about Lestat. He's like such an interesting character, but people act like the surface level aspects about him make him so different and unique. And from like a greater, grander lens, perhaps, but within the context of a fandom and the queer community lens, I feel like he's really not that much more interesting in that surface level way that people constantly bring him up. But anyway, I still like it. I like the way that vampires are described, and Rice could have definitely been like, they're vampires, you know what vampires are. Like she made them Anne Rice vampires, and I gotta give her flowers for that, and only that. I don't know if she took inspiration from other things. I don't read a lot of vampire media, but I want to. And now to get into the nail, obviously I don't have a full set to work with. I don't even have a full nail to work with like I did for the last one, but I still wanted to play on the idea of stained glass, even if I went in a slightly different direction and used slightly different motifs. And so I wanted to capture the watchful gaze of Lestat, constantly watching Louis, constantly observing with his disapproving stare and his constant disgust, love, in the stained glass, sort of like God watching over him. Okay, this is low-key the same as my other nail set, I just realized. Sort of like, is it God watching or is it Lestat? Is it God or is it the opposite of God? Who is God to Louis? Who does he worship? Who does he look up to? Who is he trying to impress? That type of deal. Who saved him? That type of deal. I do like that comparison, but I made it in a slightly different way. I also hid the image of Louis behind the curtain that I really liked, because like I said, I like all the Babette scenes, and I like the scenes where he's hidden behind, I think it's a curtain or like something, and he only communicates as a silhouette behind the candlelight until he finally reveals himself. He steps into the light, and it's like, oh, a vampire. I really like the imagery that conjured in my head, so I wanted to sort of recreate that. I like how you can only really see it when you hold it up to the light. At first I hated it, but now I'm learning to love it. I also had to put some imagery of fangs. I wanted to tie it to like the Saints New Orleans symbol, because Anne Rice had some bangers. She kind of gave her flowers to New Orleans, so I can't even hold you. The way she describes black people was kind of crazy, but the way she described New Orleans, I was like, period, I give New Orleans its flowers. So I wanted to put like a little saint symbol, but no bueno. It didn't work out. I really did try like a million times. So I just went with sort of fleshy looking imagery and a set of fangs beside the stained glass story, and I thought it really looked good, and I hope you also enjoy the way it looks, because I enjoyed making it so much. I don't know when I'm going to read The Vampire Lestat. I probably will. I don't think I'm going to read it before the new season comes out, but I'll read it at some point in my life, probably. I don't want to go my life without reading it, even if I'm not sure if this is like my type of book, but I think if you view it as like a whimsical little story, a lot of people are like the Gabrielle stans are always like, oh, you don't even know disturbing media, you can't handle disturbing media. Like, yeah, it has a lot of crazy, terrible, disturbing themes, but I feel like the way it's told is just so whimsical. Louis has such a whimsical nature about talking. Even when it's not Jacob Anderson's Louis is just a whimsical guy. I'm sorry. I think Louis and Lestat are whimsical little creatures, and I love them so much, and perhaps that might be the reason why I will continue reading. Will I ever read The Vampire Armand? It's going to take a lot. I know it's probably one of the best ones, people say, but good God, does he make my blood boil? It might take a village to get me through that book. But at the very least, I gave this one 3 stars, I think. It was whimsical little read with some crazy themes. But I already knew most of the story that was going to come up, so maybe that's why I wasn't wowed too much. Still not terrible. So the second book I wanted to talk to y'all about is The Invisible Life of Addie Larue by V.E. Schwab. If you're a Schwab girly, guess what? This is my first Schwab book. This is my entrance to the Schwab verse, and it will probably come to no surprise to you guys. It will come no surprise to you guys that this was my favorite book of the month. Oh my goodness, I absolutely love this book, and I love the main character, Addie Larue. I know a lot of people recommend starting with, what's it called, Vengeance? Vicious? Or one of her other books, like I think the first book she ever wrote, V.E. Schwab. But I wanted to do this one because this is not a spoiler, this is part of the synopsis. Addie Larue centers around a girl who's cursed with immortality, and I'm writing a book about a girl who's cursed with immortality. So that's really funny, and I thought it was cute sounds crazy. I thought it was interesting how both of our characters have not the same curse, but like similar conditions of a curse, but completely different personalities. For somebody like Addie, who I'll get into obviously, who seems like the perfect candidate for immortality, to dislike that curse, you'd have to weave a really good narrative, and V. Schwab definitely does so, which is why this is my favorite book of the month. But let me get into it. So Addie Larue actually takes place in several different timelines, but to know her story and to know what the book's about, we gotta go to when she was first born in the early 1700s in a small town called Lyon, France. And it's super duper small. I cannot find the quote, but I remember her describing it as like just big enough to get lost in. So it's basically like a town where a woman learns to do housework, gets married, has children, dies, and gets buried in the same 20-meter plot that everyone else in Lyon was buried in. And it's very, nowhere type town. We've seen that arc before. And Addie's not like that. She wants to travel around France. She wants to travel around the world. She wants to see new sights. And most importantly, she wants to draw all the things she sees in charcoal that her dad gave her and mark down every point in the world that she loves and make her mark on the world. She describes herself as somewhat of a dreamer. But as the story says, quote, a dreamer scorns her mother. A dreamer mourns her father. A dreamer warns Estelle. Still, it does not seem such a bad word until Adeline wakes up. And I want to talk about that character Estelle a bit, because Estelle is this crotchety old woman in her town who is not married actually, never wants to get married, and most importantly, unlike anyone else in town, doesn't worship what she calls the new gods. The new gods are, according to Estelle, the ones that they worship in the churches, in the Catholic Church and the faith and whatnot. And the old gods are who she prays to and prays to and gives special items away to the trees, to the wind, to the soil, to the sea, and whatnot. However, while she does trust the old gods more than the new gods, she warns Adeline to never trust the gods that appear at night, because they probably don't got your best interests at heart. And so Adeline grows up constantly praising to both the new and the old gods that she doesn't have to get married one day to somebody that she doesn't love. She has this fabrication of a gorgeous man in her head that she one day wants to meet, that she'll one day meet, and travel the world, and he'll treat her beautifully and wonderfully. But neither the old or the young gods start to answer, and she's kind of getting up there in age, and her parents are like, yeah, you gotta get married like yesterday. So one last ditch effort, literally last chance she has, she runs off into the forest because she can't run away, and she offers out an item to the gods in order to not get married and ask for freedom. She doesn't seem to realize that the sun has gone down. She's not praying to just any of the old gods. She's praying to the old gods of the darkness. Dun, dun, dun. And this one, for once, answers and gives her that freedom. Except Adeline, in her desperation and vagueness, doesn't truly know what freedom is, because she is given a million lifetimes and all of eternity to travel the world and run away, but she can never be remembered, because there is freedom in being forgotten. And now, though she got her wish to not have to be tied down to anyone, she's not tied down to the world either, and she can never make her mark on the world ever. The only way to release herself from this curse, release herself from this swindle that this beautiful god has trapped her into, who isn't actually beautiful, but you'll have to read to find out what I mean by that. The only way to finally rest is to give up her soul, and this begins a war of sorts throughout 300 years, with many battles and ups and downs between Addie and this god, who, where it seems like it's so many times she's going to surrender, and it's so many times he's going to surrender, but after 3 centuries of this back and forth, of these constant psychological, emotional battles that they wage against each other, Adeline comes across something she hasn't for 300 years. And I don't really want to spoil anything beyond that point, even though I feel like that was kind of vague, but I feel like, you really gotta get into it. I really loved Addie. This was such a, how do I describe it? This was such a character-driven type story. I don't think I would have been able to get through this entire book if I didn't love Addie as much as I did. I loved literally all the characters so much. Well, I didn't like all the characters. I liked most of the characters. I liked all the main characters very, very much, the main 3. And I think had I not liked them, I might not have stuck around, because it's definitely not the longest book in the world, but I feel like it was very much anecdotal. And you'll see why it's anecdotal at the end, and then last chapter, the way it's written, which I also wasn't, I don't want to say I wasn't a fan of, but I was like, I kind of expected that. I kind of expected that. I personally liked the second to last chapter. That was my favorite part, and I'm pretending that's how it ended. But it was still great. I gave it 4 stars, and I think that it might go up later on. It might go up to 4.5, 4.75 as the months wane. To be honest, my ratings always change, so don't take this too lightly. There's a reason why I call them nonsensical ratings. But on the actual design of the nail, I was actually going for cohesion this time, which I usually don't very much. I like to tie in the previous books that I read, but I don't like to make it matchy-matchy. This time I made it matchy-matchy, and I kept with the stained glass look, because I think religion is a heavy topic in both of these books. And I also wanted to put, and I thought the idea of a gaze, of a specific person's gaze, and eyes, and eye color, and shades of their eye color is very important, both in this book and another book. And I also implore you to think, those who have read this book, whose gaze do you think that is? Because at first it seems obvious, but there's multiple people with a pretty little emerald gaze that we know. So who do you think that is? It could be either one, honestly. I'm not gonna tell you I made it be, but I also definitely wanted to represent Addie herself, and I thought about drawing her in a stained glass window. I thought about drawing her in some other way, but since, as far as I know, there was no sequel, and she made her deal, I would like to lay Addie to rest, and just as she would have liked, I would like to bury her under a tree. So I gave Addie her tree with her constellation of 7 flowers on it, and I really like the way this part turned out. I think this was the most planned of the entire nail that I made, because I really wanted her to have this. I really wanted that gaze with the shades of green in the stained glass windows, and I really wanted the tree with the 7 flowers, and I think everything came out the way I actually planned it, which usually doesn't happen. But that's what happens when this is my favorite book of the month. So I hope you enjoyed just as I did. And the last book I read was actually a short story book. I call it a book. She calls it a short story, but it's longer than a short story. It's like 200 some pages. It is a cozy October romance, and also my first ARC read. ARC stands for Advanced Reader Copy, and it is Love on October Lane by A.R. Dow. Like Dow like ow. And it is absolutely super freaking adorable. It reminds me of back when pumpkin spice lattes were the best thing, were the newest thing ever, this crazy, amazing, super cool invention. It reminds me of when I lived in Connecticut and we would get snow days and we get the day off, and I'm like, okay, I want to watch Dan and Phil recreate goth edits. I want to read dreary fanfiction. I don't know, it reminds me of such a warm, lovely time, and the characters are warm and lovely, and the romance is so sweet. I also think they're funny. Everybody's talking about how cute it is. Can we talk about how funny it is? I thought Edith and Oliver were freaking. I really thought it was super. I thought they were super freaking hilarious, honestly. And I wasn't sure what I could draw that would still like not break the cohesion of the nail. So I decided to draw Oliver's little kitty cat named Drac, who is super sweet and super cute and calls for a lot of cute coupley moments in the short story. I would pick it up because it just came out. It just got published. It is now available on Amazon since October 1st. So check it out. I love it. It was super cute, super fun, and it's only like 200 or something pages. You can bust that out. It's a really good read, light read. And room for a sequel, perhaps? Cough cough AR, cough cough bestie, lovely. So yeah, absolutely sweet, great way to kick off spooky season / also I feel like it's a good November hit because it's also very fall-y, just general fall type vibes, absolutely adorable and cozy and cute. So maybe pick up a copy and enjoy. But now, y'all, I gotta ask, did I nail it or fail it? Excuse me. Why are you answering? I was obviously talking to myself. This is an A and B conversation. See your way out of it. No, but seriously, I do really like this nail. I think this nail is where I'm starting to look back at my other nail art book journals and I'm like, literally I only have like 2 other ones, I think. So they're not a lot, but I definitely feel like somehow I'm, even within that short span of time, I've kind of like improved a lot. I'm really liking the cohesive feel that I've been leaning more into, because before it was just supposed to be like collage. You were supposed to see like the stark contrast between books, and I do like that for the most part sometimes, but you know, I'm not mad at the fact that it looks like one design on a nail. I do really like that. I was also very pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed the books. Obviously Addie Larue was my favorite, as I said. 4 stars. I wouldn't be surprised if it became 5 stars later on in life, and I changed my mind. I changed my mind about stars a lot, guys. That's why they're called nonsensical reviews on my little review list things, because they're nonsense. Don't take it too seriously, I swear. It has nothing to do with my English degree. It's all vibes. And I was a little worried about the length because, you know, I am used to reading big books, but usually it's way more fantasy driven. This was very Adeline driven. This was very women's fiction driven, and it's not something I usually read, but it had enough of those mystical elements, and I think Addie's character was so freaking likable, and all the characters were so freaking likable, that it really kept me going on through all the just depressing things that happened in this book, just like tragic things that happened in this book. I still absolutely loved it, and I love the characters, the main character especially. And for Interview with the Vampire, I feel like maybe this gets so mean. I feel like maybe I set my expectations too low, so I was very pleasantly surprised. I think I'm so like over the fandom constantly talking about how like this is supposed to be disturbing media. This is for the freaks and for the weirdos. And like, yeah, there are a lot of disturbing themes, but it is a bit of like a whimsical little book. I want to say, like, it's a I don't know how to describe that feeling and like goosebumps. That's like, it's scary, but like it's also a little it's like aesthetically mysterious. It's like aesthetically spooky, aesthetically disturbing. It's got that soundtrack that's like you know, one of those things. But I did enjoy the book to an extent. It wasn't like my favorite book in the world. I gave it 3 stars, I think, because I enjoyed the storytelling. I think is an interesting way of telling a story. And then the ARC book by Addie was also, as I said, super fun, super cozy. Thank you so much for sending me an ARC read. It was super duper fun. I liked curling up with it and reading it next to like my window when it was raining. And thank you guys so much for watching me. This was super cool and such a great way to start off the fall season, I think. Obviously, there were some scary books like Interview with the Vampire, and like, I want to say scary, but more like existential crisis-y, like deeper thought, dark winding gods of darkness type themes in Addie Larue, and then just straight up Halloween cutesy cozy vibes in the last book. So definitely a great start to October. I think that's why I wanted to do this video now, and I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you can maybe like and subscribe if you wouldn't mind. If you wouldn't mind sliding over a like and subscribing if you're not already, that would be super swell. But if not, that's alright. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next spooky nail art video. Goodbye.